Hey, what's up, you guys? This is John Chacon with Chacon Performance Training, and speaking for the Daniel Plan Part 2 going around. This is for April. Thank you for using me again. I love this stuff. First off, congratulations to all you guys for taking this journey. I think it's extremely important that we steward the bodies that God has given us. Most importantly, because we can do those things that God has gifted us with otherwise, we can do them so much more easily. Whether you travel a lot, whether you're speaking into people's lives, working with kids, whatever you're doing, being in shape will help you to do your job and leverage your gifts so much better, you guys. And I think it's so important and powerful. You can be there so much more for your family, for your friends, instead of just kind of sitting back, being in pain all the time. In fact, that's one thing I think a lot of people forget about fitness. When you think about the general term fitness, most people think of exercise, and yet we don't always think about being in pain first. If you can imagine, a lot of people in general will take anti-inflammatories or ibuprofen or whatever they use before they even go work out. What's the point? If you're already in pain, why would you work out and not get rid of the pain first? So that's something we're a big advocate of. So I'm going to go through some of the stuff today, some of the stuff that's already in your Daniel Plan book, but I encourage you, if you are in pain, get rid of that first. See someone, see a professional about that. I can help people out with pain. I'm not a medical professional, but we can help out with that as well. Getting started, guys, I'm all about simplicity. And I know you guys are probably nodding your heads like, yes, simplicity. There's so much information out there and complexity about all kinds of crazy movements, sitting on like stability balls and balancing on one foot, like all these crazy stuff, okay? Think about those fundamental things that you do in life. That's where we start, in my gym at least, is with fundamental movement patterns, or fundamental human movement patterns rather, because we're the only creatures that do these patterns on a regular basis. The first one is the squat, which you guys are already doing as your movement of the week, and I love the squat. Not the end-all be-all movements, but it's an awesome movement. It's something we use all the time, especially getting down, sitting down and getting up from a chair or a seated position. And yet, the fundamental squat position that I show you is one that's quite difficult for most people to get into, but I'll show you guys some regressions and progressions that you can use with the squat to get into that position. If you watch an infant or a baby, they can get into the squat extremely easily. They'll have their knees out in front of them, their feet together. They just look perfect. They'll sit in the perfect squat. But as we age, we don't go past a chair that's about as high as our knees. That makes it very difficult for us to get very low on the ground. In fact, getting on the ground and getting back up is something that's inherently difficult for most people, even people my age. I'm in my late 20s, and it's kind of a sad thing. So make sure you can get on the floor and get back up easily and safely. So I saw the dynamic loosening that the author of the book was talking about. We have something called a dynamic warm-up that does involve some stretching. In fact, there's nothing wrong with stretching prior to working out, that I found at least. It does not decrease performance. Aside from what you may or may not have heard, stretching afterwards is also great. However, I'm a big fan of stretching in patterns that you would use on a regular basis. There's also going through movements, going through regular movement patterns. We focus on 1, the squat, 2, hinging at your hips, and I'll explain that in a second, the lunge or unilateral leg movements, pushing movements, and pulling movements. And those are how we build our programs. So, for dynamic warm-ups, a great way to get started is actually, let's see if I can get you guys set up here with a better seat. Best way to start is to get blood flow. And that's really what we all want as a warm-up. That's where the term warm-up actually came from. So for us, something as simple as, come on, iPhone. I'm not going to cooperate today. Okay, I'll just put you guys up here. Okay, so something as simple as jumping jacks or even pogo jumps. For some of you, just walking briskly is going to give you the warm-up that you need. I was looking at some of the movements, and to be honest, most people I work with, not most, I would say probably half or probably about a third of the people I work with really can't get into some of those positions. And if that is you, don't worry about it. I would much rather you get some blood flow going. In fact, I have some of my clients, all they'll do is grab some heavier weights and they'll do what we call a farmer's walk. Well, they'll keep their shoulder blades back. I guess I can grab some dumbbells. They'll put their shoulder blades back, working on their neutral posture, correct posture, and their breathing, maintaining this position, just carrying something. It's called loaded conditioning. It will bring your blood levels up pretty fast. Something else you can do for a warm-up are isometric holds or contractions. You're probably very familiar with the plank position. You can also do elevated planks. For instance, I can use this bar in an elevated position, put my hands shoulder width, feet together, squeeze my butt, and hold this position. That will quickly warm up your body as well. You don't need too much. Our warm-ups for our boot camps usually last anywhere from, usually average around 5 to 7 minutes. They don't take too much. For my other groups, some of them last up to 15 minutes, where we make sure to hit a whole bunch of fundamental patterns. So as long as you can get in that and you can work on basic stretches, I'll give you guys a few stretches that are excellent that most people can integrate with their programs, and then move on from there, okay? So one of the first ones would be to start out with the basic jumping jack. Keep the arms fully extended, the legs go out at the same time. Make sure that you're not bending at the elbows, that you're coming all the way up, all the way down, okay? Next thing we do, we call them pogo jumps. You're just basically jumping rope without the rope. Going straight up and down, you don't need too much. Probably about 10 jumping jacks, 20 or 30 pogo jumps. Just do that twice, okay? It's gonna start firing up your nervous system. After that, 5 squats. Very basic, moving through a fundamental pattern. Conveniently, this is your movement of this week. And I love this movement, so I'm gonna go over it with you and show you guys the form that we use here. So for us, we like to utilize, let's see if I can get you guys a better shot at the ground. That should be good. So we start out with feet shoulder width. You can go a little bit wider based on the way that your body's designed, okay? If you want, you can have toes out slightly. However, when we go down, we want to make sure that our shins are vertical. So what we're going to do is actually push our knees out to the sides and not forward. As we do that, that actually puts enough torque on our knees. That's good torque, don't worry about it. Actually torque on our hips to allow our hips to remain stable through this fundamental pattern. So as our knees go out, we'll put our hands out in front of us and bring our shoulder blades back to maintain neutral posture. With toes straight ahead, heels down. One remain, keeping the heels down the entire time. Try to keep the shins as vertical as possible and the back flat. Then come straight back up, okay? I'll show you guys from the front side. Again, feet shoulder width, toes straight ahead, heels down. Torque those feet to the ground, shoulder blades back. Nice and slow, out to the front. Make sure you're not leaning forward, coming up. Most common things I see will be a forward lean, okay? Or heels coming up off the ground. If that is the case, you can also sit down onto something. This is probably a poor example, but you're still sitting down on something. Don't use something like a keg that's very unstable. You could use something to sit down to. It could even be a chair. Come down, pause, touch, come back up without leaning all the way back on the object, okay? All I want you to do is somewhere between 5 and 8 really slow squats, squeezing your butt at the top of the movement. Following that, you're going to move into a lunge or a hip flexor stretch. You can actually start out on the ground. From the side, you have your front leg at 90 degrees, toes straight ahead. Keep that heel down. You keep your body erect with a neutral posture. Keeping your head, shoulder blades, tailbone in line with each other. You're going to squeeze this side of your butt right here. We're looking for a stretch right here, guys. So what we're going to do is bring our hips forward. And what we don't want to do is lean back and drive our hips forward. We want to bring our torso with us as we come forward. To increase this stretch, you're actually going to reach up and over, straight up and over, without any lean, without any twisting. So from the more angled view, it'll be up and over. I'll scoot back for you guys a little bit. Up and over from here, okay? Make sure your torso isn't leaning to the side like this. This part stays stable, and you reach up and over. All we're doing is trying to work on this stretch right here. Lastly, something else you can do, we have a couple options, and that'll be to activate shoulder blades. One of them I'll show you is a scapular push-up, okay? Shoulder blades are so inherent to shoulder stability and producing force with your upper back, shoulders, elbows, wrists, that entire kinetic chain along your upper body, okay? So We'll start out with hand to shoulder width, fingers straight ahead, biceps forward, feet back and together. From here, guys, keeping the arms extended, all I'm going to do is bring my shoulder blades together and then come back up. From the side, this will look like this. All I'm doing is activating. Very simple. Okay. After that, we usually do something that's involves a little more speed, a little more movement, and we'll hit it very quickly. Something like high knees for 5 seconds, or even something similar to our pogo jumps and jumping jacks explosively. Okay. But we're moving through fundamental patterns, and I don't want to go through all those today because that would either A, bore you, or B, it would take way too much time. I don't think you guys have that much time in the class. But I do encourage you guys, keep everything super simple. If you just work on squats, you can work on them throughout the day. I think April mentioned working on them throughout your day at work, which is awesome. You might get some weird looks. I used to do it. I was in the Marines for 4.5 years, and I was the guy with a standing desk, and everybody looked at me like, this guy's weird. But I didn't like to sit down all day. If you can get a standing desk at work, do it. Sometimes works will even pay for that stuff because they know it'll make you more productive. In fact, you're actually more awake when you're standing up doing those things. Things you guys can work on when you're at work, focus on your posture. So from a distance here, I like to think of it as the texture pose. You know how people have their phones in their hands? It's look very similar. Your hands are up at your sternum, shoulder blades are back, your head is here. Most common thing I see in the computer screen is this. You'll develop a neck forward posture. In fact, I was talking to a chiropractor, and that neck forward posture is one of the most common reasons people develop carpal tunnel. It has nothing to do with the wrists. It actually has to deal with the nerve endings that lead from the neck all the way down into the wrists, and it causes pain. In fact, they had a number of people do surgery on the wrists, and it didn't do anything for the carpal tunnel because they had this neck forward posture from the computer screen. So, straighten it up, bring your neck back, squeeze your shoulder blades together, and squeeze your butt as you're sitting there. If you squeeze your butt, you'll be able to stabilize your lower back and keep your body upright, okay? So that you're not putting a ton of tension on those lower back muscles to keep you from pulling forward, okay? So engage, activate, get up and walk around every 15-20 minutes at your job. Not only will it keep your posture better and not allow you to slump over, but it'll keep you more productive, it will keep you awake, it will keep you creative, so it'll help you in your job. I'm sure bosses and colleagues would really appreciate that. It'll also probably keep you in a good mood. So for that dynamic warm-up, guys, I'm not going to lead you through a bunch of stretches. Just know that they're okay to do. If you find that something feels good for you, I just ask that you remain in a neutral posture. Okay, whenever you're doing anything, the same thing applies. If you're bending over, moving through a range of motion, if you're doing that one where you're kicking your feet, shoulder blades back, come straight up. Very common, I'll see people round forward and do something like this. Don't allow those shoulders to round forward. Do not compensate in those movements where you will end up in injury and pain, okay? Which we don't want for anybody because we want you to be fit. So, this has been John Chacon with Chacon Performance Training. Please send more questions to April so that I can answer questions for you guys. I love to do that. You can also find me on Google Helpouts, or you can find me on my website at johnchacon.com. That's JONCHACON.com. And even though we're moving to Austin very soon, here in July, the gym is still going to be open all the way through June 21st. So hit us up, guys, get started, learn some stuff, and become part of the family for our short time left in Everett. So that's all I got for you guys. Stronger every day. Peace.